Hi, my name is Abtin Furuzanda, and I'm going to demystify agents and show you the remarkable power of small agents. So, if you're like me, the magic around agents is uncomfortable. They do incredible things, and you can build a lot with them, but I really needed to understand precisely how they work. I was partly inspired by the simplicity of the Pi agent harness, and I decided to make the absolute simplest agent I possibly could. And nearly everyone I've shown this to has had the same discomfort with the magic of agents. So people, they vaguely understand how they work, and they use a lot of libraries, and they can see that there's a lot of functionality they can add, but they don't know that at the very core it's extremely simple. Once I show it to them, they start thinking about agents really differently. So we're going to dive right in. We're going to build an agent purely in a single HTML file, and it runs in a web browser. So here's the whole code base. All right, so define a document for HTML. We're going to give it a tool, so it gets the JavaScript eval function. That's its only tool that it's going to have. Now it's the super tool, right? You can do anything at all if you have access to eval. It's sort of like having access to bash. But because we're running in a browser, we sort of don't have to worry about a lot of the sandboxing that you might normally be concerned with it when you run an agent on your local system. We're going to rely on the browser sandbox to protect us from whatever the agent might do. But within that sandbox, the agent can do anything at all. And this is way easier than sandboxing a locally running agent in any other way. So then we give the agent a system prompt. We tell it what it is. You're an agent in a local single page HTML file in a browser. Use the eval tool to act on behalf of the user. You can use the eval tool to inspect the code and do whatever you want. All right, so I want to be clear, this is the definition of the whole agent. Like, this is it. It gets one tool and it has a system prompt, and we're good to go. Then there's a function to interact with it. So this chat function takes the user's message, makes a note of it in the list, calls OpenRouter in this case. This could be anything. This could be Olama, LM Studio, Unsloth, whatever you want. There's some other provider. But in this case, I'm calling OpenRouter. I'm hard coding my credentials. Obviously don't do that if it's a production application. And I'm going to use Opus 4.6 because that is almost certainly going to give the best results for the purposes of this demo. But if you have more patience, you can use different models, obviously. So I wait for a response. I push the LLM's response onto my message list rather. What is that? All right. And then I'll print out any reasoning that it might have supplied us. And then if there's any tool calls, I'm going to loop through all the tool calls that it wants us to make. Now, we only provide one tool. So basically, the model is going to potentially give us a list of just strings that we're going to shove into the eval tool. And those strings represent programs, essentially, that the model has come up with. So the model can write programs to manipulate the web browser however it wants. And we're going to take the output of running those programs and add those on to our message list. So if the model wants to find out something about how the page runs, it's going to run a tool that's going to, in this case, going to be eval, that's going to run a program that's going to inspect something about the page and then return the result. And then once there's no more tool calls, we're done. We'll print the final message to the console. And that's it. This 72-line HTML document is a complete agent. So again, the list of tools the agent is capable of, the system prompt. This becomes very important later on, but for now, we're just going to keep it to the simple system prompt. And then a function to talk to the LLM. And that's it. And what that looks like is this. Ta-da. Right, very impressive, but let's interact with it. Let's say chat, build a simple dashboard. So it's taken this message, it's passed it off to Opus in this case, and we're waiting for Opus to respond. and it's going to give us a simple dashboard. In fact, we're going to do one more thing here. We're going to fire up a second one of these. Chat. Build a simple dashboard. Make lots of tool calls so we can see it being built. Let's do that. So the first one, it's probably done. Yeah, the first one's done. Came out with a nice dashboard. Yay. This next one, I like seeing this a lot because, again, it demystifies how the agent's operating. So the agent sent a tool call to render a background. Now it's sent one to do this left-hand div thing. And we're sending it the results back as those tools run. And then it's going to keep sending us more and more tool calls. And to me, this is a lot like watching Claude Desktop work, where when it generates an Excel file or a PDF or like a Word file, you'll see it write a Python program that will then do the thing. So it's really interesting to me to see this view of how it all comes together. And then once, as this goes, and then it'll eventually wrap up, you can interact with the document. And that I find actually to be a lot cleaner than other ways of interacting with LLMs when you're trying to get them to produce some kind of artifact. So let's see, middle row added. It's kind of cool looking. I always wonder how it decides what to make when you give it such a generic prompt. Like, where did it come up with Jane? That's interesting. All right, and we're going to do something. Well, we'll just wait for this one to finish. That'll be the cleanest. So it's working. So again, what's happening right now is it's making tool calls. It's pushing the results of those tool calls onto the list. Then it's doing another turn of the conversation in this loop right here. Not another turn, rather, but within the same turn. It's looping and sending the results of those tool calls up. And then the LLM is telling the agent, okay, now here's some more tool calls for you to execute. And it's just doing this loop. What we haven't completed the conversational turn yet. So that'll happen when all the tool calls are done. And then we'll finally print out this assistant message. But if you look here, you'll periodically see its reasoning, potentially. Yeah, step 29, add interactivity and tab switching. It is going all out, burn-in tokens. All right, everything is interactive. Try clicking that. Okay, let's see what it did. This is cool. Not that interactive. It didn't do it exactly right. And we could tell it to fix this. I'm not going to tell it to fix it, but what I am going to do is just to illustrate the point here is add 2 more cards to the overview page. And this will add, there's 4 cards on top, revenue, recent orders, traffic sources. So it should add 2 more. New cards, row style added. I actually really like this way of interacting with the agent. Here we go. It's populating these. So, and I find it works really well because it has direct access to the artifact that we're concerned about. But this isn't revolutionary. Where this method really comes into its own, where the full power is demonstrated, is that because the agent has access to eval, it's able to modify everything, including itself, to give itself new capabilities. So let's do that. So we're going to have a previous prompt in here. Let's see. All right. So I'm just going to tell it. Right now I'm chatting with you in the console using the window.chat function. Please turn this into a web page. Please turn this web page into a chat page so I can talk to you there. Keep hitting the chat in the left-hand panel and resizable. I want the main body to be blank so I can work with you to make various changes to it. All right, so hopefully we can graduate this chat out of the console and into the actual web page. And this is where the power really comes from, is because we can give it more tools. We can have it build tools that it adds to its own stack. We can have it update its own system prompt. We can do lots and lots of things where the agent builds up its own capabilities and then becomes something that is custom fit for how we want to work. You know, the way I use an agent might be different from how you want to interact with an agent. Let's see. Well, that's a nice touch there. 3 dots. Okay, I think that worked. So let's do this. Make a simple dashboard in the work area. Let's see. Can it do it? Yes, it can. So now this is kind of cool. It's a way of interacting with the dashboard. I wonder what happened there. Oh, those are the tool calls. Okay, so it did a weird job rendering those. One way to fix those might be to have it add vision support to itself. I'm not going to do that yet. But as you can see, like this harness just became more powerful by virtue of the agent being able to add tools to itself. So I hope that this has been educational. Now I'm going to go one step further here, and we'll see if this makes it into the video cut. But what I'm going to do is add the essential capability that's needed to actually turn this into a functional solution. So we're going to do this. Add the ability to download the entire page. Be sure to capture all HTML, JavaScript before doing before doing it. Make sure that this chat functionality has scripts associated with it, not just event listeners that cannot be serialized. Add a download button to the top Humonctor heading in a hamburger menu. Lots of spelling errors. Memu. Oh my goodness. Okay. Once it has the ability to download the page, then you're able to make persistent changes to your browser harness here. And then you can experiment all you want, right? And preserve those changes. So if it does this correctly, I'll be able to download a new index file that has this chat feature already built in. And then I can experiment from there with adding more capability to it and more capabilities to it. Let's see. And that's the point at which it would make sense to start fixing the bugs. Okay, it did that real weird. That's awful. But let's see. Oh, generated a download. You marked your page 1. Did it do it twice? Download page. It's doubling up. All right, interesting. Sure. Okay. All right, let's do a test. Nope. It did not work. So we can drop down, chat. I can't click on the message entry input box. Fix it and review the download. I'm going to give it a bunch of stuff to do. Download functionality since it seems to be duplicating downloads. Also, the download button is in the hamburger menu. This is a very different way of working with the document. So now it's going to do a lot of inspections, right? So this new agent has no idea what it has. So the first thing it's doing is grabbing the entire file. At some point, it'll learn that it can't do this because this document will probably grow too big. But for now, that'll still fit in context. Okay, so now it's doing some fixes. It'll try to fix it. Now let's inspect the current state of scripts, understand duplication issue. All right, maybe there isn't a duplication issue, but it's going to spend a while trying to figure that one out. And it's just going to keep working away. And at some point, like, what becomes interesting is you can add more and more capability to fit exactly the way you want to work. So I hope you guys have found this interesting. I hope that this makes it a little bit more straightforward to build an agent. I'll post the code to GitHub and I'll link it. And if you have any questions, I'll look at the comments for like the next few days. So here, but before I go, I'll double check to see if this worked, because I think that would be really cool if we could actually get this to the point of becoming self-replicating in a live demo. Let's see. Everybody doesn't click at all. What's the last thing it did? Verified download button is now inside the menu. Header restructured. I love seeing this where it verifies its work. Because it can execute eval, it'll make a change. And I see this often in more advanced versions of the agent harnesses that I've built, where it'll, without me having to tell it at all, it will make a change and then run another eval to verify that the change actually happened. It's not perfect, but it's usually pretty good. Okay, let's see. Download page. I think that's right. 4. Are we going to hit 5? 5. Okay, good. So I think it fixed the eval issue. All right, let's see. Test. Does it work? Does it work? Ah, it's working. There we go. See, at this point, this has become a completely self-sustaining harness, right? The worst thing that can happen is it completely blows up and we just go back to a previous iteration. And the number of things you might improve here is endless, right? We might add more buttons. We might, like here's an example button is add another button to the hamburger menu. Call it and feature rate. I don't know. In detail, describe the content of the work area such that another LLM could implement it. All right. All right, so once again, it starts by getting the whole thing. And then, yeah, with this, it's going to start thinking. This gives Opus everything it needs. Now let me inspect the work area content and add the end feature rate button. I think it's gonna, we'll see which path it goes down, because my input is ambiguous. It might think that the button should only apply to this content. But really what I want it to do is run a prompt that will trigger the analysis to do the thing. So Let's see. Let's actually see what it does, and let's download the page. See if it did it do it in a way that it did. It did in a way that it shows up. But let's inspect, because it can look at itself, but we can look at it too. I don't think it has an event bubbling up. So it didn't do it in a way that wires it correctly. So at this point, this happened a lot. In other versions of this, basically, you start telling it to modify the system prompt to never have this issue happen. So, and then you can go further and further and further, where you can like tell it that the LLM should send along a second parameter where it'll tell you like, should you persist the content of the eval it's about to run. So it might run an eval to wire up an event to a button, and rather than having the LLM like know that it needs to generate that as a script, you just ask it, hey, you know, is this something that you're just trying to introspect in the document, so it's read only, so I shouldn't persist it? Or if it's an event wiring thing, mark a persist flag as true, and if you do that, I'm going to add it to a script section on the page. And that's like that's what would solve this in a deep way. So let's see though, this in feature rate. Describe the task, yeah. You want to add, oh, it did something completely different. All right, well, that's fun. All right, I hope this has been educational for you guys and girls. Thank you, everybody.